Hey, BCC here, and welcome to the recap of the Chill Draft League's regular season for my team. So as you can see, I went Mono Psychic. So looking at my team, the first thing that you can notice is I have Necrozma, which means this is a restricted draft. In addition to that, we have no Dynamax. So going into a restricted draft, I didn't want to make my first overall pick have to be a restricted Pokemon. So I decided to go Mono Psychic because there are so many restricted Psychic Pokemon. And so I could decide to pick my last possible pick as my restricted Pokemon. So I could pick some very good Pokemon in the early rounds. So I ended up getting some of the big ones were NDD and Tapu Lele to end up getting consistent Psychic terrain, which is incredibly important because almost everyone on my team has the ability to learn Expanding Force. In addition to that, I got Metagross pretty early because Metagross seems very important because I do not have many physical attackers, and it's a physical attacker that also is just very good overall. Other than that, I do have a pretty good slow mode and Reuniclus and Oranguru to set up Trick Room and do some pretty good damage. I have a pretty reasonable fast Pokemon, an Espeon that has Expanding Force, Dazzling Gleams. And then other than that, I have a couple of utility Pokemon and Prankster with Meowstic, Jinx for for things like Lovely Kiss, Sigilyph for things like Tailwind and Gravity. And overall, I think my team looked pretty good. However, it obviously has the big problem of having, it's of a normal monotype team, which is kind of dealing with its weaknesses. And hopefully I was able to deal with them. And let's get into our season. So this is week 1 against the AK Blade. So looking at my opponent's team, some of the big scary Pokemon are Spectrier, Incineroar, and Registeel. Those are definitely the big concerns. So my main idea to deal with Spectrier was Choice Scarf on Tapu Lele. My main way to deal with Incineroar was Meteor Beam on Necrozma. And my main way to deal with Registeel is giving every single Pokemon on my team a fighting coverage and also having Metagross so I can have a diversity in special and physical attackers. So let's get into the match. So here we are. They have a Spectrier Glade lead, so I ended up leading damage with these. I ended up getting a good kill there and ended up getting some pretty early kills. The big problem was I accidentally Meteor Beamed to my own Pokemon. However, it ended up not being the biggest deal, and so hopefully now we're kind of in the situation where it's my 3 Pokemon against theirs, but they have a really big defense boost, and I just kind of do my best. I definitely have some pretty bad luck in the early couple turns by missing multiple Focus Blasts, but at this point of the game, it's literally just me hoping that I can get a crit with maybe 20 to 30 different attacks off before my Pokemon die, because I think any crit here probably wins me the game. And so kind of just getting to the end game where I'm slowly running out of my PP of my good moves like Aura, Focus Blast and things like that. And we're getting pretty close, but like I said, just hoping for a crit. And what we end up getting is that I end up not getting any crits, and so definitely gets pretty annoying, but they get me there. Game 2, similar. I lead the same way. They have a pretty similar lead. I realized I kind of need to deal with Clefable before I can deal with the Incineroar, and so I end up getting pretty good position where I can kill the Incineroar, kill the Clefable, then kind of get into the position where I can kill the Glade. And now they're down to just their Incineroar and so I ended up killing the Incineroar, and now it's 3v1, and now they have a pretty good special defense, but not a great defense, but they're slowly getting their curses up. And so here we're in the exact same situation as we were in previous game, which is I need to get get a crit, and I win, and if I don't get a crit, I probably lose. I have a lot of opportunities to get crits, so it's likely the case that I'm probably going to get a crit at some point, but we can see that, I think I end up getting a mealtime crit, and I get a perfect crime crit there and get the game. So game 3, they lead with this, and they set up Trick Room, which I consider a really big deal because I get a free switch into Glade, which Glade in a Trick Room with expanding, or Reuniclus with Trick Room has expanding force does a lot of damage, and we do a situation where they don't have as much time to set up, and I'm able to kill them. And so definitely a close match, but I was able to get there after a lot of stalling. So here we are for our match 2 opponent. This is against Living on a Prayer. So the big things that scare me is Dark Urshifu, Silvally, and then in addition, Type Null and Bronzong can be pretty good. On the bright side, the restricted Pokemon are not great against me. So my main plan to deal with them is Choice Scarf, Tapu Lele to hopefully deal with the Urshifu, and then the rest of it is just hoping to get into Trick Room and dealing with some of the other Pokemon. Definitely doesn't seem like a great matchup, but let's get into the match. So we can see that my opponent brought, kind of some of the Pokemon I mentioned. The big one that I didn't really mention is Swampert, which has Wide Guard, which can be pretty annoying against my possible expanding forces. So they bring Savali and Bronzong. We shortly check that what this type of the Savali is. We see it's a steel type, and so we decided to just double up the Bronzong with Shadow Balls with the hopes that we can kill it before it, possibly sets up Trick Room or something like that. We don't really want to deal with it. It's multi-attack, which is Steel Moon, does one-shot my Tapu Lele, and now we get into NDD, and we're definitely not feeling great position. So here I decide to just expanding force and Shadow Ball into the Savali to hopefully get some pretty good damage into Savali. The multi-attack ends up killing one-shotting Espeon, and my expanding force does very little damage into the Swampert, and I also get yawned. This looks like a very terrible position right now, and so here I decide to just go for the follow me even though I'm yawned and Moongeist Beam into the Savali. The reason why I follow me is because I feel like they're going to yawn again. If my Necrozma gets yawned right here, I definitely feel like I'm in a terrible position. We end up baiting the yawn. We get a Moongeist into Urshifu, which was a huge amount of damage because it's Trick Room. However, this game is completely over because my Necrozma doesn't have a Berry or a Focus Sash, and this Wicked Blow is a guaranteed KO. Definitely doesn't go well, but this is kind of where the position where it's really awkward because, Urshifu can virtually one-shot every Pokemon on my team. There's a couple that its roles depending on their specific Urshifu set. For the most part, it one-shots any Pokemon on my team other than Metagross unless I have a Colbur Berry or a Focus Sash. So this game, I decide I'm going to focus a little bit more on Trick Room because that fast mode didn't seem to go as well as I'd like. And so I decided to do that and then choice specs Espeon in the back for after the end of Trick Room. So they bring Bronzong Urshifu, so pretty similar lead to last time, except with Urshifu, which is a little bit more threatening to certain situations. So here, with the Urshifu, I feel like I have to protect or follow me, and I set up Trick Room. So we follow me. The Wicked Blow goes into the NDD, which is able to survive because of the Colbur Berry. And here we kind of are just now that Trick Room set up, there's not much we do. We predict the protect from the Urshifu. We Moongeist Beam, end up getting pretty good damage into that, and our NDD dies. So now we bring out the Espeon, and we decide to go for the Dazzling Gleam to kill the Urshifu, and then Moongeist Beam with the hopes to kill the Bronzor. So they bring in Swampert, and they protect the Bronzong. The Dazzling Gleam does not do great damage to the Swampert, which is definitely very concerning. My Espeon is Specs, so I can't really do anything. So I just decided to switch it out, and then I decided to try to kill the Bronzong spot. So we bring in the Oranguru, they switch into Type Null, which is really sad, and my Moongeist does nothing, and my Necrozma is swamped, or taunted, and so here I just kind of switch out and decide to go for another Trick Room. So the Wide Guard, which is good because it doesn't do much, however, they do get a Swords Dance off, and now I'm in really bad shape because the Type Null is actually very slow, and not only that, it also has some pretty good coverage, like Shadow Claw, which one-shots my Espeon, which is also going to one-shot my Necrozma. And so the only thing I can really do is just Brutal Swing, activate my weakness policy, and hope I underspeed the Type Null and Trick Room, and see if I can get a one-hit KO. We Brutal Swing, get my weakness policy activated, and they underspeed me and one-shot me with Shadow Claw. And we end up getting lost here. Definitely not even, I wouldn't even say a particularly close match. I felt like I was completely out-prepared and that the matchup seems really tough. So let's get into our next week. So now I'm 1-1 at -1. I'm against 2-0 team with Samurai Jack. That is actually the reigning champion. Their team looks very scary because they have Reggie, Lecky, and Zacian, which are incredibly fast, but they also have Sableye, which are pretty good under Trick Room. In addition, they have Thievul and double terrain setters under my terrain. So my main idea to deal with them is mainly to set up Trick Room and deal with them under Trick Room, because I do think that their Trick Room package is a little bit weak. And other than that, hopefully the idea is to kind of just deal with them without that. So here we see that another thing I kind of forgot was Meowstic, which I did bring to charm their Zacian, because most of my Pokemon, if not my entire team, survives an attack from Zacian at -2 attack. So Zacian is incredibly scary for that, but hopefully that's kind of the way in which I can deal with it. So the lead Thievul Tapu Fini with Unburden, which makes sense, is not too surprising of a lead. And I decided to just fake out into the Thievul and set up Trick Room turn 1. And they end up setting a light screen, which is pretty reasonable and pretty strong because a lot of my team is special attackers. So I decided to fake Tears and Moongeist Beam into the Tapu Fini, and with the hopes that it's going to do quite a bit of damage because, obviously it has light screen up, but my Necrozma is pretty powerful. They end up saying a Calm Mind, and they Snarl, lowering my special attack. And so this definitely doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to effectively do too much damage to the Tapu Fini. And so here I decided to switch out the Necrozma into the Metagross with the hope that they're going to Snarl, activate my weakness policy in Metagross here. And so we Fake Tears again into the Tapu Fini shot, and they Foul Play, which does a lot more damage than I would have liked. And I definitely was hoping to Snarl, but I did get my weakness policy, so I do have a clean kill on either of the Pokemon, and so I just debating on which one I want to target, and I decide I'm going to kill with Thievul because I'm expecting to protect from Tapu Fini. So I switched into Reuniclus because we're in Trick Room. End up killing the Thievul, but they did not protect with a Tapu Fini, and their Moonblast does kill. So here now we bring in Meowstic. And we have a Fake Out. However, they have a pretty clean double protect because this is the last turn of Trick Room. And so pretty much all I can do is just protect or Fake Out and do an attack. But they do, in fact, double protect. And now we're in a situation where Trick Room's up. And so I Charm into the Zacian instead of Trick Room. And this is pretty good because I don't think they were expecting it. And I'm sure they thought this Crunch was going to kill, and we end up getting the Trick Room up. And so now we're not in the worst position. We bring up Necrozma, and now we're under Trick Room, and so we decide to Earth Power into the Zacian and hope that the -3 Tapu Fini is enough to kill it. The Expanding Force just barely doesn't kill it, and it's really sad because if that was a Psychic instead of Expanding Force, we do get the kill there. But in this case, we lose our Reuniclus, and we just end up deciding to kill the Tapu Fini and letting our Necrozma take quite a bit of damage. Now we're down with Sableye left, and they end up getting the kill. So it was definitely pretty close. I'd say 1 or 2 decision points definitely could have made the difference between that game. But this time I decided I wanted to have a little bit more terrain myself, and so I decided to set up to bring Indeedee as my lead and to kind of guarantee setting up Trick Room because I feel like a Oranguru would have been pretty good in that match. So they lead the exact same way, and I lead this lead. So I get a pretty safe Trick Room up. I decided to just go for the Expanding Force in Trick Room and say, I don't care what you do if you want to taunt or something into my Oranguru spot. This might have been a little bit greedy, but they taunt into Tapu or Indeedee, and we get a little bit of damage off, and we Trick Room. And so one of the big problems that I think in hindsight I found out about this lead was my lead just does not do much damage into them right now. And so we're kind of in this awkward situation where I really want a free switch in. I want them to kill one of my Pokemon, but I also don't think I can switch in comfortably because that Foul Play from the Thievul can do a lot of damage. And if they end up double up into my Pokemon, I think the double up will kill either Necrozma or Metagross if I switch in. And because my Indeedee is taunted here, I actually can't even switch out, or I can't even follow me and switch out the Oranguru. And so we're in this awkward situation where, yes, I have Trick Room up, but I can't do anything because of my lead. So it definitely felt like I should have probably done Indeedee, Necrozma, or something like that as a lead instead, because that would have probably been a little bit more consistent damage output. But now, they've successfully stalled. They're basically going to successfully stall out my Trick Room, and I've done almost no damage to their team because I'm literally just having to click Expanding Forces because of my Pokemon. And so they end up getting the kill here, and now they have a pretty clean just double protect. And so I can hope that they don't double protect and that I am with Thievul, and we get the Brutal Swing, activating my weakness policy, which in hindsight is probably not even a good thing because now the Foul Play on their Thievul is a guaranteed one-shot into my Metagross because I'm at +2 attack. And so I just decided to protect, hopefully get up Trick Room somehow. The protect goes in there and Crunch. And so now we have kind of exactly one out. I can double protect with Metagross, hope they attack into that and get up a Trick Room, and then maybe I have a shot out here because, Necrozma should take up one attack from them. We don't get the double attack, we lose Pokemon. But I do end up getting Trick Room set up and here, but it's too late now, and all I can do is, basically just do some damage and then die. This definitely was closer than it felt, but it was pretty bad. So now we're up. We're at 1-2, and we're up against the Metagrosses. Metagrosses is pretty concerning because their Trick Room is very good with Calyrex Ice. And then they also have Dragapult and Cinderace, which are all pretty good Pokemon, and then Scraggy, which is a surprisingly good Pokemon. Sadly, I don't actually have the match video for this, and so what ends up happening is I think I end up misplaying with the Metagross and the Calyrex Ice, and they end up just barely winning in a 3-game set. the big thing is like Necrozma and Metagross do line up pretty good into the restricted. So now I'm 1-3 at a -4, and I'm up against the Drillbirds. So some of the big things that they have is they have Solgaleo, which is pretty good, and their Trick Room mode is pretty good with Vikavolt and Scrafty. And so some of the ideas of kind of what I want to do is hopefully get some speed control with Tailwind, with Sigilyph, and Necrozma, my Necrozma kind of getting in a good position where I can hopefully one-shot their Solgaleo because giving it Life Orb. So I lead Tapu Lele Sigilyph, which is pretty good into their Regirogo. I set up screens and set up and some timely protects and switches to kind of to mitigate the Solgaleo's damage. And we end up getting our weakness policy activated, and it does pretty good damage, and we kill their Solgaleo. They set up Tailwind, and their Draco Energy does a huge amount of damage, just barely missing out on KO. And then we switch in Tapu Lele, and we kill the Regirogo, and we get some luck with them Ice Sharding in Strike Terrain. Here we lead. I lead the same way, and they lead with a Scrafty, and Scrafty definitely is pretty concerning. It's doing reasonable damage, making my damage do a lot less. But we're able to kill the Scrafty, end up getting Reuniclus in Trick Room. And now we get to a position where I just don't want to activate Weakness Policy until I get the kill, and I end up getting the kill here, getting the match. So now I'm at 2-3, and I'm playing against the Wigglytuffs. The Wigglytuffs have a pretty hard matchup for me. They have Configrigus and Escavalier in Trick Room, which makes my Trick Room look really bad. They also have Groudon with Lilligant, which is a pretty scary lead, and then also Liepard seems pretty good. So my main idea was to hope that Gravity, Sigilyph, and Hypnosis type effects was going to be enough to kind of get me through some of these, because all of these are really concerning things. And then my Sigilyph also was going to have a kind of way to deal with the Sleep Powder. So here we just Gravity and make the Pokemon go to sleep. And we continuously do this over and over again, continuously making the Pokemon go in sleep and getting a little bit of damage here and there. And whenever Gravity goes away, kind of Gravity so we can get the 100% accurate Hypnosises and Lovely Kisses. So one of the things that was really funny about this match specifically is that my opponent actually didn't know how Gravity worked. And so they were just completely upset the entire time, this entire match, because I was getting every single Hypnosis, and they're like, how do they keep on hitting these 70% accurate moves 100% of the time? So anyways, game 2, I pretty much do the same exact strategy, which is set up Gravity, do a bunch of Lovely Kisses and Hypnosises, and get into a position where hopefully I can get some kills with Necrozma and things like that. So we're, they're following me on their Togekiss is definitely quite annoying, and the Configrigus under Trick Room is pretty concerning for my Necrozma. And so here we kind of just, hopefully get into a position where we can get some kills. I protect, which ends up not being used, and that's probably the difference between the win and loss here, because I just barely miss out on that with the Heat Wave. And so now game 3, same idea. Set up Gravity, Hypnosis some things. We bring in Tapu Lele to kill one-shot Liepard. We should have brought in the second terrain to deal with the Prankster on that. And then here we're just kind of in a situation where we just continuously kind of try our best to do some position. We do some fake outs. And we, get into a situation where we're 2v1, but we're able to take a hit from Escavalier and get the kill. So now we're at 3-3, and we're up against Politoed Wild Wides. They have Necrozma Dustmane, which is a pretty concerning Pokemon in the general sense, but my Necrozma is at the same exact speed sphere, so if I make it fast enough, I might be able to kill it. Other than that, their Sun Mode is also pretty concerning, and Glastrier under Trick Room is also pretty concerning. So let's get into the match. So we lead a Meowstic, and we decide to just fake out, and we end up getting the one-shot because of the Life Orb I gave on that. I switch into Ringaroo into a Shadow Ball, which is really nice, and able to kind of get into a situation where I get some foul plays off into the Kangaskhan with the hopes to kill it. They activate my Weakness Policy, but also get the burn, which is a really big deal, because if they didn't get the burn, I would have one-shot Ninetales there. So here we just get into a situation where we hope to be able to get the 1v1, and we get down to it, and Ringaroo is able to kill it. So we're here for game 2, and so this time I lead Terrain, and they just barely miss. They miss with the Sleep Powder, but now with that, we're in a really good position because we have Terrain, and they're in a situation where their Kangaskhan can't do much damage, and then we're able down to get a commanding lead. The Heat Wave activates my Weakness Policy with Metagross, but the double up ends up getting the kill. So now we're at 4-3, and we're up against the Orlando Magics. This would have been a very tricky matchup, in my opinion. However, they end up forfeiting. They didn't actually do any more matches after this for the entirety of the season, and so doesn't do much. So I do get a free win. So I get up to 5-3 plus 3, which is definitely pretty nice way to kind of help me feel I can get into playoffs pretty comfortably at this point. But, you know, there's still a pretty reasonable number of matches left in this season. But, yeah, like I said, you know, not too much analysis of what I would have done, but, like, Mana Disc could be pretty concerning. Zamazenta could be pretty reasonably scary because it does have Wide Guard. But, like I said, you know, they did not play many games this season. So with that, we're at 5-3 plus 3, and we against the Furious Lycanrocs. Furious Lycanrocs actually have a pretty reasonable team against me, which is Grimmsnarl is pretty good, Aggron is pretty good against a lot of my team, and Xerneas, if it sets up, is very concerning. So I decided to lead with Choice Scarf, Tapu Lele, and Choice Specs Espeon because I think that's a good way to deal with almost every possible lead they have because the Psychic coverage or the Fairy coverage can kind of cover almost any of the possible leads they could have, and then they also have Fighting coverage. So they lead this, and they try to fake out, and the double Dazzling does get the double walkout. So now I'm in a commanding position, so we just continuously double Dazzling Gleam because one's Choice Specs and one's Choice Scarf, and then we kind of get in a situation where we're switching getting kills. So I decided to lead the exact same lead. This one, how they do Aggron this time, I decided to Focus Blast into the Aggron and Dazzling Gleam. The Focus Blast misses, but I'm fine as long as the Focus Blast hits next time. I end up killing the Aggron, and the Dazzling Gleam hits up there. And now we're in this position where I feel pretty good. We get a Dazzling Gleam off and a Focus Blast and able to kill the Lycanroc, and now we have 3 Pokemon left. They have 1. I bring a Metagross and get a pretty easily kill, and we're able to get there with the Iron Head. So here we are. We are 6-3 now, and we're against the Aussie Battlers. As we can see, Aussie Battlers did not do a huge amount of battles recently. However, they do have some pretty scary Pokemon in Scizor, Dusknoir, and then Rillaboom being able to set up change the terrain is also pretty concerning. And so with that, my main idea was I'm just going to do Tapu Lele and an Espeon lead, and hopefully be able to kind of crush their lead with damage with Choice Specs and whatnot. And so we do that lead, they lead that, we do double Expanding Force with Indeedee and Espeon. They end up switching in with the terrain, and then we're able to get a kill there. Next match, also pretty quick. However, we do the Espeon Tapu Lele lead. They are no switching the terrain. We switch out to get some terrain, and we're getting to a situation where they're able to set up Trick Room. However, it's not that big of a deal because they have not the best Pokemon against me right now, and Rillaboom comes in and gets a double KO. So now we're at 7-3 against an 8-2 team. We're doing really well. This against the Kyogre team. However, one of the really big things about this team is that they have 0 psychic weakness or resist on their entire team. So I can literally give only psychic coverage if I wanted to my entire team. However, I'm going to do only psychic coverage and then some Grass Knots to specifically deal with Kyogre, and then an Ice Beam to deal with the possibility of Landorus Eye. I'm feeling pretty good about this. I think I have a pretty safe Trick Room with this lead here, in which we follow me in Trick Room, and from here we're able to get Parasong up because their Blissey gets pretty bulky and I don't want to deal with that, and so we're able to get some pretty good damage into them, but we get a full paralysis by the Runicle is really big deal because next turn when we follow me and try to Trick Room, we don't get the Pearl Paro, and then without being in Trick Room they end up getting the kill. Next we decide to lead this with Choice Specs Espeon or Choice Scarf Espeon to order to outspeed Choice Scarf Kyogre. We're able to get a pretty good advantage lead, and they're able to kind of set up this, and we get all the kills except for Blissey. We're ringing Jinx, which we have Parashon specifically to deal with Jinx, and our Blissey, and then from here we kind of get in a situation, but we are actually able to kill it without the Parasong. So now we go back to our game 1 lead. I do a very greedy decision to not follow me turn 1. I then switch in Renewicus once we have Trick Room up with Terrain. We do Helping Hand, Expanding Force, Helping Hand, Grass Knot to kill the Kyogre. And then here, now we just set up Trick Room, and we're in a pretty commanding position where we can get a pretty easy kill. And we got there. So now we are here, and this is our playoffs, the first round of playoffs, which happens to be our same opponent in week 11. So here is our first round of playoffs, and we're against them. This is a really good matchup. I decided that I think Trick Room seems optimal, and I think I have a guaranteed lead if I just set up Jinx and Indeedee. There's no way they can stop that from me setting up Trick Room, and then we will have Reuniclus in the back with either Necrozma or Metagross, depending on the preference. I actually also decided to do Iron Ball Tapu Lele to set up the terrain again if I feel like I need terrain, because they do have the ability to overcome the terrain with Tapu Koko. So let's get into the match. So here they lead Landorus Kyogre, which I think is honestly the best possible lead to prevent me from setting up my Trick Room. But I have Fake Out on my tap or NDD specifically for this possible lead because of that, and we have Dry Skin on Jinx, which makes their Water Spout completely useless. And so here they do the double switch, and I just Expanding Force, and I decided to Ice Beam into the Landorus spot to get the guaranteed KO, and I end up getting a freeze, which is huge ills against the Blissey. So here I can just switch out because I'm not concerned about the damage that Realiscus might take, and I get an Expanding Force, which kills the Crobat. They bring out the Kyogre, and so here we can just double Expanding Force, which does pretty good damage, and we get the freeze again, which is a really big deal. The Kyogre gets down to 1 HP, which is really sad, but not that big of a deal, because then the Expanding Force here gets the KO, and they get frozen another turn, and we get the Expanding Force and killing the Blissey, and now it's just Landorus against my entire team. And they Rock Slide, which ends up killing the Reuniclus, but mixing the Jinx, which doesn't really matter because I'm assuming it's Sheer Force, and I had a Charity Barrier to guarantee survive that, and the Ice Beam gets the kill. So here, we do the exact same lead because I'm convinced this lead is the optimal, and we end up getting to a situation where we just follow me because they end up having Taunt on the Tapu Koko, and we get a clean Trick Room up. And so here we just double Expanding Force. We take a Flamethrower from the Blissey, and the double Expanding Force ends up killing the Tapu Koko. And so here I decide I'm going to switch out the Jinx because I want it to save it for later because I think it's going to be really important against the Kyogre possibly. We get the Expanding Force, which breaks the Pyapa barrier of the Crobat, and we bring in the Tapu Lele. Tapu Lele gets a Shy Shock, which ends up killing the Jinx because or the Blissey because it doesn't have great defense, and now we just have Kyogre, and so we kind of just do Helping Hand, Shy Shock in order to deal a bunch of damage to it and prevent Water Spouts from being out. And here they end up, with Follow Mean to deal with the possibility of getting hit, and we get a kill on this, and we get there. And with that, we make it to the semifinals of the Chill Draft League. And with that, here we are in the semifinals against Samurai Jack, who is the reigning champion of the Chill Draft League, and pretty convincingly beat me week 3 of the regular season. So hopefully I can get there and get to the finals. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.